So glad to be here. Glad to see so many people made their way and made a choice. How many of you remember the movie, the original Matrix? Most of us. And this is an iconic episode where we learn about ourselves, which means every day we make decisions. It was just an example how to make a decision. Would you still love to live in the Matrix, or would you like to break out and live free? And we will return to this notion of our human behavior, and especially what we do 1,000 times a day, which is making decisions or choices, throughout the next hour. And specifically, we will look at how we can scale it up by building transforming cities and designing socially empowering infrastructure. So earlier this morning, we had a conversation, and there a person said, oh, well, I've heard the words engineering and social or the human in one sentence. Yes. That pretty much combines my background in computer science, MBA, and socially influencing systems. So let's dive in. Here is an example of a choice. People make choices right there, every time. But the question is different. There is some sort of engineering background there. So there's this sidewalk, and there's even this sign. We can assume it's like a very basic engineering. And the sign says, please use sidewalk. Question is, why the sign is not working? Tell me. Small. One answer is the sign is small. The other answer is that direct path is faster, most likely 1 second faster. What else? Well established. Yes. Yes, it's very visible. It's right there. And any other ideas? So let me uncover a layer of social dynamic that's usually overlooked. Pretty much everything on top of the nature on this planet is built by people. That means some social touch to it. And here, why the sign is not working, let me give you a tour through this social layer over here. So if I ask how many people walk the straight path, what would be your guess? Just mention a number. How many people? Not in percentages, just a total amount. 1,000, many thousands. So my guess is, let's say 10,000. The next question is, how many people were necessary to build the sign? My guess is the same. It's 1. Game over. That's the invisible social layer that we are actually inherited through our evolution. This is how we react to other people. And here we have 1 against 10,000. That's why the sign is not working. Because the footprints left there are by 10,000 people. So we follow that. And we ignore the one person putting up the sign. What do you have as experts in engineering and changing places and spaces? What would be your best ideas how to change this game? How to make the game even? Barrier, putting a barrier, what else? Landscaping, what would we propose? Fence, new landscape. What particularly in the new landscape? Flowers, yes, that could be one. So pretty much, if we put flowers or green grass, what do we do in this social layer? We are taking away the 10,000 immediately by green grass. So that's how I provoke all of your brains. Now know that there is a social, invisible layer in everything, in every infrastructure, in any design, at different scales. Let's move on with how usually we approach problems. So if there is a bad weather and we want comfort, what do? We engineer house. Next, if the problem is we don't have enough light, we want more, we engineer electricity. And certainly, we have seen this progress from candles to the electricity. And that's a huge transformation. But if you pay attention to the last bit on the right, there's not that much innovation. There is still, but this gap, like this leap from the candle to the first one was much more transformation. And nature actually has told us what a transformation is. So imagine there are aliens arriving to the planet, and they're looking at all the species, and they look at the caterpillar. Would they guess that the caterpillar in a few weeks will be a butterfly? Obviously, no. But the nature has told us what is the basics of transformation, what it means, and it also now I will provoke all of you to think about what it means for a human being to transform. And we will get closer to the origin of these transformations, where they have to happen in the first place.
This is called a wheel. Now, according to its developers, it'll change the way we work and live. Why? Because it rolls. It can also be added to wagons to make moving a heavy load easier. Your opinions?
If it rolls, that means it could roll away and get lost, right? Or it could roll over your foot. Do you have it in, square?
No square.
If there was a square one, yeah, it didn't roll, then maybe I would think about buying one. Nice try. The wheel.
Did you notice something familiar? Especially if we think about innovation. Maybe a group work, maybe you have this brainstorming things and all those. What I'm trying to point out within this talk and all other talks that are available online is that we essentially are fighting our own human behavior. That's why it's so tempting to avoid that, right? Especially if I remember my computer science background. Oh, it's easier to build a computer that will do the same thing. So why shall we do something about these human beings? So therefore, this is a huge reminder that what essentially is happening in the terms of transformation, and especially in the area of innovation. So, and giving you the last example about how we would like to get to further distances, we engineer a car. But again, once we have this new innovation put into place in the last century, there are these experiences today which remind us again and again, engineering and innovation is part of our success and our well-being. We, human beings, and making our choices, blue pill or red pill, every single time, we are determining whether there will be successful innovation or not. So here I would like to draw your attention to the fact that here is just an example how we sometimes, just because we don't know how the human behavior or human attitude works ourselves, we get trapped into the illusion that it's enough to engineer great stuff and not really plugging the human behavior in there. So, essentially what we want a happier life, and we want to go from sad to happy. And most of the times, and nowadays, people try to engineer things and put them in the hands, these kind of things. And then the question is, what these things engineered are actually, what kind of impact do they do on making us happier? The older guy is a road in this specific example. And the younger guy is a driver. social campaign. You know why, right? And again, let's look at the two great innovations, a car and a phone. Imagine these two fellows go together alone on a trip. Most likely they will do quite well. But now we have this third element, human being, and making choices. And the question is how the choices are made and how effectively the human brain was actually helping the person to be happier or less happier in these situations. So therefore, we have to look at what do we have as the central element in how it drives our decisions. So those who have read the book about thinking fast and slow, they are informed about the two major parts or the functionalities of the brain. So the red part is instinctive. This is what we share with most of the animals, mammals on the planet. And then this blue part, which is making us different from them. That's intelligence. So we have the instincts, and we have the intelligence. We have the emotions, and we have the rational part. And those two are playing significant role in decision making. So sometimes we remember we made a decision, but there's no logical rationale behind it, so we just loved it, or what was that particular drive to make a choice. And then sometimes we really overthink and make a lot of effort in making what decision would be better, and then we go to this utilitarian way. So to test this, for those people who have seen this before, I encourage, give an opportunity to the rest of the audience to enjoy the beginning of the transformation. So for those who know and have seen this before, please give the chance for the others. For those who haven't seen this before, the question is, what is in that box? That's the question. So what do you think? What's in the box? One option is a TV. I hear another option. Bicycle. So how many of you think it's a TV in the box? And how many of you think it's a bike in the box? So we have a little bit more for the bike. And I think if we know how we make decisions, we look at the other peripheral cues. And in this example, we see the bikes in the background. So yes, they inform us most likely it's a bike. So the next question your brain asks is, but why? Why is this TV image on the box, right? Naturally, the rational brain asks. Instinctive brain said, I see a TV, must be a TV. The rational brain kicks in and says, why is the TV? That's a real company, real products, real problem that they were solving. What do you think? Imagine there was this managerial board. CEO, finance director, marketing director, human resource management, sales and marketing, all of these C-level people are sitting around the table, and the person says, one of them, we cannot live with this anymore. We need to make a change. This is too much. Let's put an image of TV on the box of our bike. Now is the question. What was the reason for that person to say this? What do you think? So the message is not for the end consumer. It's not for you receiving it. It's for the other target audience. The target audience is people handling boxes. And because before that, these companies suffered 30% loss on damaged bikes on delivery. So what they do, they put this image, which would trigger their instinctive brain to think it's fragile, and they changed how they carry the boxes. And the damage was down from 30% to 5%. One image. This is how environmental change, a new way of seeing things or engineering things or designing, architecting, can have a huge impact on how people think and consequently act. Here are examples where they try to decrease the speeding in a city. That's in Stockholm. And they put up a lottery. So if you go over the speed, you pay the fine. And if you comply with the speed, you participate in the lottery to get some bonus. And certainly they got to the good results, and they decreased from the 32 kilometers per hour to down to 25, and that's 22% decrease. But again, if you ask, what part of the brain, instinctive or intelligent, is targeted by this kind of urban design? What do you think? Instinctive, 1, or intelligence, 2? intelligence, I hear more. Yes, both, but intelligence is more. So we need to calculate and rationalize that. And here is a collection of different crosswalks. You see left, lower end, there is this light shows up when people come to the crosswalk, then they light up, and then they fade again. On the right-hand side, you see this is illuminating crosswalk. And then on the right upper side, there is this Tokyo futuristic hologram type of thing to bring awareness. But in the left upper corner, that's from Quebec, Canada. So it's a very physical crosswalk in your face kind of thing. Very straightforward message. And then we can think again. So which part of the brain is now more triggered? Or what's the split between the two? So it's getting more towards the instinctive, but sometimes also still very rational. So you're not going to ride into those. But then this final example about the crosswalk. And I'm sure many of you have seen this before. And they have many implementations globally. So this is from Iceland. And it looks like a brick, looks like a concrete blocks. And what it says to our instinctive brain, you better push the brakes, otherwise you crash. And this is how it works. So first of all, this kind of design and architecture pierces through our second system, which is intelligence, and pierces into our instincts. And if we can design our projects and our innovations in this way, we will be much more successful in changing what people think and do in those environments. Coming to the conclusion about the part that we speak about the brains, we need to understand one truth. And this example will help to do that. So we see this kind of a chessboard with an element on it, and there is the shadow, and there's the two squares, A and B. And you can imagine the question is whether the color of the square A is the same as the color of square B. And the question is now to you. How many of you think it's the same? And how many of you think it's different? Let's check it out. Magic. Let's see it once again. Magic again. And now the magic is over. Right? And to put it into perspective, let's put it side by side. And now you can look to the left, and now you can look to the right. And you wonder what's happening. It's the only thing that's happening now, or the average human illusion that our brains are perfectly able to translate everything that's happening is not true. And therefore, it's the same part that makes decisions. It's the same part that now is confused. So therefore, the more we understand how we make decisions and how the brains work, we can design more effective innovations and put them around people. So this is just another one. The length of the line. And it looks to us it gets shorter or longer, which is not true. And again, I would like to refer to Neil deGrasse Tyson, quite famous astrophysicist. And he says, you know the name of these books in the stores when you go and ask for them? What they usually are called? What's the name of these books which have these examples in them? Optical illusions, right? Yes. The Neil deGrasse Tyson says the book should be called Brain Failures. Well, yes, we can choose anything we want. But now let's go into the core of my work and the message I want to convey. So if you're asked, transformation, so changing something sustainably, how does it feel? And most of the people will respond, it's difficult, it's challenging, it's mystical, I don't understand, I have tried, I failed, I don't know, I give up. So my message to you today, knowing more about human behavior and knowing more about the potential and tools to work with the innovations that would be successful in changing what we think and do, it's the only problem is this. For the most part, it's just not understood. And this is what I will try to change in your perspectives and give you more insights into transformation. marshmallow experiment.
All right, so I'm gonna leave and then I'll come back, okay? So you can either eat it right now or you can wait. Either way, okay? Okay.
So if they wait, they get 2. If they don't, they just have the 1.
How'd you do? Did you do good? You did?
Yeah.
You wanted to eat it, didn't you? Yeah. So did I tell you to give you another one? Okay, now you can have both. You need them.
A decision making from very young age is difficult, right? So we are tempted by pleasures and we are tempted to run away from pain. And of course, in these young human beings, it's even more difficult to control because they even know less about that. So here are potentially the same tools used for adults. So this is a Moscow metro, and you get a free ticket to the metro or underground if you do the 30 squats. Kind of assuming, and they replicate in Mexico City, assuming, okay, people will be more active, that's really great. And then in Dubai, they offered 1 gram of gold for every kilogram they lost of their weight. And then they replicated the same a year later with the kids, saying, kids are our gold, so let's do that to help maintain more healthier lifestyles and better weight for every person. And you see, if you read this, it might be a good way, so it's maybe a good way. They don't say it's a good way. It's maybe a good way to introduce new fitness habits. The problem here is one thing, the thing that you see over there, which is a ticket to the metro. So in the conventional way how marketing and organizations work, they use 2 motivation tools. Very familiar ones. And this is one example of that. Rewards or punishment. Carrots or sticks. And this is obviously a carrot. And I will be going more into details in the next slides. This is a recent scientific experiment we did. So imagine you tell people about new innovation and then put these carrots and sticks around naturally to think that they will change their behavior because they learned the new knowledge. But in reality, the strongest path from the new knowledge or the innovation is to the acceptance, and only from the acceptance, so people accept it in their lives, and then go to intention to act upon this new innovation, and then getting to the behavior. This is an experiment from more than 50 years ago. There are scientists entering the elevator facing the back of the elevator, which is boring, and there's a regular people in the elevator. And you see what's happening. So this is called social influence. Nothing about carrots, nothing about sticks, no rewards, no punishments. But so powerful. So people are just naturally following others. And it's not only norms. There are 7 social influence principles that I studied in my PhD and now applying in my work. And I always question organizations and cities. Why you constantly use the short-term, short effectiveness tools like rewards and punishments if you have this? You saw it's just happening. It's inbuilt in our DNA. An example from California. So electric cars are very famous, and how they are purchased. They are purchased in the clusters, but not only where they purchased are showing these clusters on the map. But recent insights in the data shows even the places of living of these people with the electric cars are clustered. So if they speak to their neighbors, they see how the neighbors drive around, what they choose, and this is what's influencing other neighbors to purchase electric cars. The same, I recently spoke, I was in February in Silicon Valley again. The same happens with the solar panels on the roofs. You look through the Google Maps and you see clustered solar panels on the roofs. This is an example from Amsterdam airport, just to show that they engineered an interesting table, and they put it really high, and the requirement was that people come together to get the table down, which means as they sit down on one of those seats, it brings the table a little bit down. So no other way, like in this case, there is still a carrot. They have the dinner afterwards, but still it was really fundamentally expecting people will get together and cooperate to get that done. So returning to this initial question of how we can get from sad to happy, how we can improve our happiness and well-being, it's not enough to put things in the hands or into the environment as engineering and technology. We have to have human component inbuilt in those engineering projects and innovations. So referring and summarizing these methods of influencing human behavior and attitude, so usually in history it was this, okay, let's give rewards or let's punish people. And out of there's a typology of change, 3 types of change. Transactional, and for that punishment is the good way to do it. So if you park the car in the wrong place, you get the fine and you kind of pay the fine and forget about it. The next is transition. So if you are promised that if you will obey all the laws for the 1 year, you will get a bonus. So that's a transitional change. It has a duration. But still after the duration, you might give up that idea because the term is over. It's like a self-created mental jail that you put yourself in. So therefore, social influence on the right is the tool to really make things transform fundamentally. And again, if you look at the left upper corner and right upper corner, sticks and carrots, punishment and reward, they are artificially created by our intelligence to our human DNA. It's like overlaid. It's like an addition. It's complementary. While the social influence is this is what we inherited in our human evolution. This is how we always seen other people. This is how we always reacted and changed what we think and do based on others. And the way how to simplify the whole transformation idea. You see this green thing just made an arrow and a green arrow. The green arrow means where we want to be. We want to have a healthy life. We want to have a well-being cities or transforming cities. That means if every decision you or some other developers or engineers or consultants are making, and if you stick with the green arrow, which means better, healthier lifestyles and urban space and beyond, every single decision, every single day has to land on the green arrow. The moment you move your decision slightly away from that dedicated direction, geometry creates a new arrow that points a different direction. So let's see how does it work. So in this case, let's say we aim for sustainable mindset. Oh, what was that? That was a decision that kind of slightly moved away from the arrow. Let's play it again. Goes, goes, goes. What was that? That was this one illusion that people say, it's only this decision. It's only how we make this particular small project over here. We will be back on the arrow. No. Geometry works like this. Ow. So actually, that's the other arrow which is pointing to the different direction because of the small, small deviation that people made as the choice. So therefore, this is one practical tool you can put in your agenda for whatever you do. If your direction is towards making more value for the stakeholders, that's your arrow. If your business is towards sustainable development and footprint on Earth or carbon-free, that's your arrow. And anytime you make a small decision which is off the arrow, you are in a different one, and you will land in a different place. Bear this in mind, and feel free to use it in your daily activities. The whole collection of insights, it's not only me. There are many well-known scientists. Albert Bandura in social psychology from Stanford. Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow, Nobel Prize winner. Behavioral economics. We have neuroscientists now, and I wait for them to give more clarity of how the neurons work so I could do my work better. Technology design, BJ Fogg, and decision making, Mike Kilgore. So all of these insights bring together tools for transformation. So I pulled together 8 tools. These are the first 4 to understand where is the problem and what's around it. What's the root cause of our inability to make a sustainable change. And out of 8 tools, 4 are just to understand what we are solving. And those who remember this movie, quite iconic as well. So what's the first rule of the Fight Club? You don't talk about the Fight Club. Second rule of the Fight Club, you don't talk about the Fight Club. So within the first 4 tools, you understand where is the problem. You don't talk about solution. 5, 6, 7 is where you start to deploy knowledge about social psychology and implement the solution. And especially important also tool number 8, which is ethics, because we develop very powerful, influential tool that has an effect on millions of people. So we need to be careful about ethical stand in this. We need to be reminded that we are fragile. That's a deployment in Paris. So there is this billboard making the noise, reminding people it's dangerous to cross the street on the red light. So it was only on a red light. And again, if you remember 3 types of change, transactional, transitional, transformational. Transactional one time, most of the sticks. Transitional, more of the carrots and long term, and the transformation, which is sustainable change. So what kind of change do you think is induced in this one? It's transactional. Because the next crossing where there's no sign, what do people do? They first of all look for the sign, if it's there or no, and then the next is cars. Oh, no cars, I cross on the red again. So we need more sustainable solutions than that. This is a study we did at MIT in Boston and Cambridge with the 14 companies, real employees commuting to the work every day. There were 240 people engaged in this for 6 weeks. And the whole idea was that we put the activity of how people ride bikes to work on these rankings and then on the screens in the office. So it's not only people have them on the phone, they have it in the office on one of the screens, which means constantly engaging in social dynamic behind that. And that showed great results how to provoke people to change. So generally, in any behavior, we have self-driven. If they want, they change. And then we have the opponents. They will say, never do that. And then we have these people of January 1st. Those are our target audience. We want them to help to get greener, right? So this is how it works. If we open up the gate and we show other positive examples, it's like a social pull. The green people are pulling the yellow people, undecided people towards them. If the yellow people change their minds and they make different decisions, their identity change, and they become greener. And once they become greener, they're joining the group of green people, and the circle grows naturally. This is how it works, and you always have access to that. So that's the way how to leverage the knowledge about influence from the other people. And this is an example to show how strong it is. This is another experiment. So this lady in the purple is a regular person. All others are recruited by scientists. What they do, there's a beep in this waiting room, and people stand up on that beep. And you see, the regular person just got the talent. Here we go. More ordinary people coming in. So it works. So this is how new behaviors, new identities are transmitted through one person to many. So first of all, from many to one, and then from one to many. So we it's a lot of fun because we look at ourselves. And what I try to do, I try to demystify, unfold the transformation that we have encoded in our DNA, and pay your attention that all of us, we have that. And we could use that in our favor when we do engineering, when we do innovations, and we do construction. So generally, pulling all these pieces together. So transforming cities from my perspective, of course, engineering, social engineering, as well science, governance, and business. So this is an example how at MIT Media Lab, these are my colleagues, Arnaud, Jean, and Louis is building a Lego model and moving bricks around. And one brick is a residential building or a park or a street or a commercial building. And then you see those parameters change. Those are parameters about different kinds: energy, access to parks, well-being, and so forth. Then we also looked at the basic ways how we can extract data from people passing by using Bluetooth. So this is about step counts. And there are already companies that are using this idea how we can leverage the step count for good. And this is a company that produces this kind of special elements you put or where the people walk, and they count the steps, and they also create some sort of the energy that can be put as an innovative way to engage people. The same also goes beyond only walking around in the physical spaces. You can drive around and you see the instant feedback how you do. On this vehicle we tested, that's me by the way, with this sumo style, still at the MIT. So about how you pedal or use electric assist on the vehicles. The same vehicles, of course, have autonomy, which is the next thing we would need or we would like to have in the cities. And you would see that there's autonomous lightweight vehicles would see you, will stop. That's one of the stage of development of vehicles that also could communicate to you how eco-friendly other drivers have used them before. And coming back to the brains and the instinctive and intelligent part, I think it is a great example. So eyes are talking to your instincts, and the lights, which are turning from red to green, are speaking to your rational, intelligent part of the brain. So combining, we can always figure out innovative ways to combine these two.
One day, we connected decibel meters to a few signal poles around the city. If the decibel level went over 85 dB, the signal would reset and stay red for longer. आता बसा बोंबलत. बजाओ बजाओ और जोर से बजाओ और रुको.
It's possible, right? And it works. So people get instant, intelligent insight in what is the collective behavior. Or if we speak about instinctive part of our brain, people receive instant insight in their instincts. So those are already possible. And if we think that everything we do as innovation in our spaces where people live and they work and they commute, this is how we can get instantly those transformations happen. And of course, our ideal, and this is from Toyota, that would be a space where everything is very balanced and it's peaceful and it's very well organized in terms of energy, in terms of human potential. So as a contrast to the previous video, so that's kind of their vision of the future city. And the way how to get there, it's not very fast because we have the legacy and all of the things we have built already. But one thing I will show you as a prototype from our MIT project is this screen. The screen shows what was the speed of bikes over the last hour on this particular street and what was the average speed for cars. And if you see that the bikes go 12 miles per hour and the cars go 9 miles per hour, it's a congestion time. It's just a reminder, it's reflection. It makes the whole thing transparent, and this is how it triggers your mind to make possibly a different decision if you want to do it and if you have the ability. So concluding about the transformation, it's very powerful. If the one person over the year hasn't changed, it's the same person after a year. If there is a 1% better increase in every day, so in a 1 year, mathematically, that's the result. So what happens if there is a 1% less of performance of a person or a company? That's the result. So very statistically, very mathematically, it's a clear thing. What is the effect of the transformation?
I think the greatest of people in society carved niches that represented the unique expression of their combinations of talent. And if everyone had the luxury of expressing the unique combinations of talents in this world, our society would be transformed overnight.
So this is my favorite Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, we have talents. And of course, I had a conversation earlier today, and sometimes we miss the talent, but we have them on the planet, so it's just about getting it in the right place and combination. So we would be able to transform the planet overnight if we put all of the talent in the right combination and having the tools that I also showed you earlier. And that's the website which has the talks about transformation. But the one thing I would like to emphasize is our brains actually know everything about us. They have been with a human evolution for 3 million years. And that's the intelligent part. Instinctive part has been with us with 300 million years. And it knows the answer to change. It knows the answer to transformation. And I think that the role that I'm playing, and I would like many people to play, is actually navigate and guide everyone and every one of your brains to that spot in you, in your DNA, and activate the transformation gene. Because after that, you are a new person, you are the driver of the change, and you are actually making this change happen. Thank you very much.
You talked about that, the arrow in the path and deviating it from it, and the consequence of not getting there or changing where you're going to end up. Can you expand a little bit more on that? Because obviously, not obviously, but it seems like we want to be flexible in how we pursue goals. We want to be able to be resilient, drop off, return. I mean, could you expand on some of that? Because it seems a little conflicting with some of the...
So I'm sure that's the challenge to the status quo of the brain function so far. So brain has found a comfortable place. Oh, this is how I've been making decisions so far, so why shall I now do something about it? Because naturally, biologically, it requires energy for our brain thoughts to be operationalized. And certainly the question is, I think your question is how to really get around that possible barrier of following up with this arrow type of thinking as we have these arrows with the transformation. Now, the good news is your brains, even if you didn't listen, even if you checked emails and read something else, the beauty of our human psychology is your ears transmitted the information to your brains anyways. So your brains know this is the game. And I think what you can do consciously, you can create awareness of your previous habits returning and your previous habits trying to guide you to directions that they went before and asking you why I should apply this. And you can start with the small things. You don't necessarily need to do this with major changes first. I encourage you to start with the minor things. I don't know, that could be read more books or stay away from the screen after 10. Or coming home after work, putting your stuff down and putting your phone into your bedroom for charging. So all those kind of minor things. And then try to observe your brain coming up with a very creative ideas why you actually have to have the phone in your pocket. Oh, your neighbor might have called you or would like to do something, or somebody might send you a message. So I cannot tell you the absolutely working way for everybody. But the one thing I can tell you, now you know this, that if you have decided your life or your company is going on this arrow, and that's your main target, every decision you will be making every single day within that context and the question, create an awareness whether that decision is actually landing on the arrow. And most likely your brain will be trying to walk away and say, oh, only this time. But then remember what happens if it happens one time, so now it plays. Here we go. So once you make a decision that is off the arrow, you are leading to a different outcome. There is nothing else magical. It's awareness of this happening. And your brains know this now. You can, as a help, draw these arrows for yourself. And if there's something that you do at work, draw the arrow, make the goal, and put it, and also draw the other arrows, and have it in front of you. That will be a visual reminder to your conscious brain to pay attention. And you can do it also at home, any place you feel comfortable. I know to some degree it sounds a little bit childish, but I know people learn languages like putting the stickers all around. So that would be your language of transformation in the same way. You could get it more accustomed to it. Thanks for questions. Great question.
So you had the, is it on? All right. The carrot and the stick, and then the just people behaving in a certain way and everybody copying. But isn't that still carrot and stick? Because you're probably simultaneously want to be included and afraid of being excluded?
Great question. Yes, it's a good one. To make those happy that see the carrots and sticks in this, yes, I can say it's a social carrot and a social stick. Yes, there is no kind of, I don't need to pretend there is something artificial in here. We are speaking about ourselves. We know how it works. And all of these examples that put the smile on your face, it's because your DNA recognized what's in it. So therefore, yes, if you want to be together with the group, that's your social carrot. So you're kind of, and the carrot is not like, it's not something given to you, but it's like triggered in you. And your enjoyment of being accepted or part of the group is your social carrot. So let's see these two, also the differences. So the typical carrot is a reward that is given to you. Here is your coupon. Here is your premium. Here is your trip to Hawaii. Here is your money or car, new car, and so forth. So yes, we can refer to these as to have the transition smoother from the older paradigms. I refer to them as the older paradigms. They still work. And by the way, when I saw the circles, bringing people from yellow to green and also the red, people often ask, oh, what do we do with red? This is exactly a place we can still use the carrots and sticks. So if they really are not willing to do anything, you can still play a good carrot or play a good stick to make them a little bit orange. And then if they make themselves a little bit orange, they experience, and the DNA says, oh, drinking water is actually a good thing for your body. And then they might start to recognize, oh, I'm orange, and they don't think they're orange, but they would say, oh, there are other people like yellow that are moving towards the green. So yes, there is a specific place for all of these tools on a spectrum. And you might hear people speaking about nudging, people speak about gamification, people speak about behavioral economics. Let me tell you, it's the same thing. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it's the same thing. Our human behavior is the way it is. And the more we know about it, the more we know about the brain function and how we make decisions, the better off we are with our innovation and creating new architectures and infrastructures and engineering things, having this human component in the loop. And you've seen it's possible. So now you have no excuse after this talk.
I might have missed this one, but you had a sign that was up in Boston, I believe, that showed the number of people or the speed of the bikes versus the cars. What was the impact of that, and have you used it elsewhere?
Here it goes. I forgot to tell you. I was leading this example to the point that this is how we prototyped, which means the sign was photoshopped. But again, you looked at the sign and you... But again, it's good that we want the proof like immediately, but remember that moment when you saw the sign, your brain was fully convinced, oh, this is how it works. Oh, I feel how it's going to be influencing my decisions. So dedicated car drivers would think, no way. The dedicated bike riders would say, yes. And then the yellow people would say, well, if that's the case, I remember I have a bike at home. I do ride it on the weekends. And actually, there's this new bike lane from my work to home, and that's just 2 miles. So why don't I try it? So that would be the different kind of thinking relating to that. So answer is, it was just photoshopped, but it gave let me remind you, the whole basic idea behind the transformation of my work is guiding you in yourself, to your DNA, to your brain, and help you to see that you have the potential and the power of transformation in you, inbuilt, historically, evolutionary. And if you got to that point, and I have helped you to unveil that power, you have a new identity. You have no escape anymore. And you become naturally making decisions that are transformative. So therefore, all of these examples that I collected were just about helping you to guide to that place and see that place and activate your transformation gene. And after that, I think we will see the results over time. So your decisions will be different, your innovations will be different, your consulting will be different. And then lives of millions of people will be different.
I have a question for you. Related to that, let's say our firm, or probably every firm here, wants to improve the quality of the work we do in our firm, but we're a firm of 100 people. It's hard to get 100 people to do anything better. And the way I'm interpreting your comment there is what I should do, rather than maybe have a big quality plan or whatever, is to tell all these people that good quality is in their DNA and that they just need to realize that. Is that close enough?
Yes. I mean, you have the same approach as I just did. I played it out. You just take the arrow to the quality that is inherited in their DNA. And then you try to pull together evidence of how that works, especially in the good quality work. And then you show, yeah, it's happening, and everybody has it. And you saw what happened when everybody stood up on the beep. And then gradually, the people who are, certainly in every organization, you will have some green people that are having the good quality results. And those are your starting point. And then the question is how you design the experience of the yellow people to become more aware of the behaviors of the green people. And then they realize, wow, if these other people are doing good quality work, and this is how they possibly doing it every single time, and they would think, oh, maybe I can do it too. So yes, you would be using the same approach, guiding people to that gene and trying to activate. And the power you will be using for the guidance is the social influence, is the example of positive other people, just like from these 3 circles. I trust me, in every organization, in every community, in every group, you will have some green people, some red, and some yellow. And especially if we think about organizational context, once we start implementing some of this instant feedback loops by exemplifying green people to the yellow, that would pull the yellows, some of them faster, some slower, into the greens. And then you would ask what to do with the red. So in an organizational setting, I think it's quite simple. They already have voted to go somewhere else. So if they haven't found it attractive and they have the negative attitude towards a good quality of work or arriving to meetings on time or all those kind of things, if you cannot get them orange, or if that implementation hasn't gotten them to become orange, most likely they just have the clear negative attitude, opinion towards where they are. So organizational setting, they're free usually to go. In health and well-being in cities, of course, we cannot, and that's not the role to change everybody. We just need to acknowledge that there are red people who will continue smoking no matter what. They would say, I will smoke until I die. And the people who will never ride bikes, although they have it. So just for your awareness, red people are present, but also green people are always present. And then January 1st, I think it's just obvious thing that you see yourself or some of your friends making New Year's resolutions. And I would like to help them, and I think this is the work that actually ignites and activates the gene to achieve the change.
So as our world becomes more virtually social, and our workplace, sometimes some younger people want to have that be a more virtual. You don't have the person-to-person interaction for that, what I'll call real social influence to happen. And what are you seeing there?
I see the same thing as we all experience. None of us would question the landline phones not existing in the households or at the work, right? So the phones having the wires, and you need to dial. That's just an example. I'm sure most or many of you have experienced dialing using those, right? But nobody is actually questioning that. It's a silly question. Like, how do you remember about them? The same way all of our experiences, including work experience, including our collaborative virtual spaces. I've been doing this virtual trainings already. You have platforms that can easily split people in the groups, and they just have 3 or 4 speaking, and then they're coming back to the main session and reporting. And again, we are tapping into the same natural human DNA that understands how the social influence works or how the social dynamic works. It's just that the environmental changes is now bringing in the new perspective on the same thing. So therefore, the first of all brain says, how come I will not see these people in the meeting room? I will be disappointed. I will not be able to look them in the eyes and say, And we know we don't think about the landline phone anymore like this. So we will not think about that perception. It just takes time and also takes your awareness to be okay with it. Your brain will constantly come up with these reasons, but I'm positive, I'm optimistic, I've seen it happening already, and it will continue happening. The same happens with people and autonomous cars, right? So people think, autonomy is great, this car is great, but can you remember the ancient people? But can you have the autonomous car with a driver? So can you have them in a square? In 10 years, people will have no problem with autonomous car not having a driver. That's my guess, wild guess, but I'm sure. And that's the answer also to the working experience and the social dynamic in a workspace. It just vanishes by the technological and engineering that you and your partners are creating, hopefully with this social knowledge in the DNA of your innovations. So thank you. This was a good one to conclude. Thank you very much.